Welcome to Watch and Learn. Today we're going to tackle all the sashing and borders on the Blues Quilt. I'm Kim Sandberg.
I'm Kristina Whitney.
We're both studio educators here at Handi Quilter, and Kristina, we're tackling the part of this quilt that has really had me scratching my head, going, how are you going to do this? Your sashing and borders. Number one, I think the only ones that are consistent in the same depth, width, whatever you want to say, is your outside border.
Correct.
Everything else is kind of fill in all the nooks and crannies. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yes, because that's exactly what it was.
Okay.
I took all of these blocks and I just laid them out on the floor.
Okay.
And I started in one corner and said, okay, I need this much sashing to connect these two blocks. I mean, there was a lot of math involved. And there's even spots where I did my math wrong, so I have like an extra 1/4 of an inch strip sewn on. And yeah, so the sashing is very unique.
Yes, it is.
We'll call it unique.
Well, and I think it's part of the fun of this quilt though, because every block has its own unique setting to frame it.
Yes. Yep.
So how are you going to quilt it?
Well, that was probably the one section of this quilt that has given me the most grief.
I can understand. Yeah.
Your typical sashings, they're the same size.
And they're symmetrical.
Yes, and you can find like corners, and like there are no corners, there are no starts and stops. So that's where I started going, there's no starts and stops. What do I do?
Okay.
I'm going to do a design that has no starts and stops.
Oh, perfect.
So I've opted not to use Pro Stitcher.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to try to get designs to fit in these different areas.
No.
And then the next thing that I thought about was, what have I already done in this quilt?
Right.
What can I do to kind of tie everything together?
Okay.
So I've got lots of loops,
Okay.
continuous curves, and straight lines.
Right.
So I decided to stick with the straight lines
Okay.
because I don't have to try to make a match.
I like that. I like that. Okay, now straight lines. So are we talking a design with rulers?
Nope, I don't have time for that.
Okay, so this is going to be free motion. Okay, I'm excited to see what design you've settled on, because I know you've shown me a few options.
Yes, so I've decided to do a straight line stipple,
Okay.
but a variation of the stipple where the lines are allowed to cross over.
Ooh,
And
like that.
I can do them whatever size I want,
Okay.
whichever angle I want.
Okay, so triangles are allowed. It's not just squares and rectangles. Okay,
Yep.
I'm liking where we're going.
Anything that happens to come up on the quilt is allowed.
Okay.
But the focus is keeping it on straight lines. So what I'm going to do is if I'm going to come down a section and back up a section, I'm going to keep this fairly open.
Okay.
And then when I come back, that will kind of increase the density.
Okay.
So same thing if I wanted to come across, fairly open, and then add to it.
Okay.
And I could just do a section wherever I can fit in the throat space.
Right.
Over here, I can just go crazy.
You got lots of room there.
I've got
Fill
some
in.
threads in there. And then if I miss a spot, I can come back, jump in, grab that, come in, grab this. And it's kind of along the same path as, well, finding your path.
Right.
So just figuring out where I want to go. And my goal is to get as much done in one throat space as I can, advance the fabric, and so on. Then with the border section out here, I'm going to continue the exact same thing.
Okay.
So I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm going to use the tan thread. And if you look at the fabric, it's got swirls in it. So that was kind of part of the reason why I opted to do the straight line, just to mix it up a little bit. Any other thoughts of what you would do if you had to do something in this sashing?
You know what? I wholeheartedly agree with you. This is one of my favorite designs to quilt because it's super forgiving. Because you are purposely crossing over, it's, it's not that uh-oh of like a traditional stipple. Oops, I just put a loop in, gotta repeat again. No, I think it's a great plan, and I think it's perfect for this quilt because you have zero consistency in the sizes of the sashing, which that's quite often the case when you're doing some kind of a sampler quilt.
Yep.
I think it's perfect.
So a couple things that I'm going to be thinking about as I actually do the stitching is my density.
Right.
So what I like to do a lot of times when I'm doing something like this is quilt out one section, and I want to take a picture of that.
Right.
And that way when I advance my fabric and it's covered, I can still look at the picture and kind of, make sure I'm keeping the density the same.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I will start out with really tight, dense quilting, and by the end, I'm like, whoop, 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 okay, that one's done and good.
We're going for loops.
I'm done.
Well, and I know for me too, especially on a quilt this size, I probably wouldn't get it all done in one day. And I would come back the next day and be like, all right, I'm going to do all triangles today. And halfway through the quilt, it switches. So picture, really great idea.
Yep.
Really great idea. Keep you on track.
Okay, with straight lines and sharp points, I'm going to change my settings on my machine.
Okay, so show us what you're gonna set this as.
Okay, let me bring up I'm going to up my cruise, and I'm definitely going to be in cruise for this section.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know that we've talked a whole lot about the difference between precision and cruise, but if I'm in precision mode, which is this one here, my needle is not going to cycle unless I'm moving the machine.
Right.
So I might come to a point, but the needle might not go down because it's not the full needle cycle section. Right. So I might not get a sharp point there.
Gotcha.
So that's why I'm choosing cruise.
Okay.
I'm going to stop with the needle in the down position.
Perfect.
And when I do the actual stitching, when I do get to a point, I'm going to do a very brief pause there to let the needle do maybe 2 or 3 stitches so that I do get that nice sharp point, and then I move on. Okay, so one of the things is when you do the straight line stipple is a lot of people get going really fast.
Right.
And then they end up getting loops instead of points.
Right.
So it's very important that you pause at those points. Take that time. Okay, you want to do some stitching?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's do some stitching.
I'm going to start over here. I'm not going to worry about this big border section quite yet.
Okay.
Okay, I've got my settings done. So I'm just trying to fill in that space. And I'm trying to not do a repetitive shape or design because I want this to be unique. So this is why it's so forgiving, is that you can't mess it up.
Nope, you can't.
Okay, so stopping with the needle in the down position, I'm going to come down, but I'm going to keep it a little less dense so that I can fill it in as I come back up.
Okay.
Yep. And that is the end of my throat space.
Okay.
So we're going to continue back up. See how I'm just kind of crossing over things? I'm going to jump back over here.
Well, and what a good way to deal with when you've got to go back and forth over the same area is just looser quilting to start with, and then fill in the density as you work your way back, keeping it consistent.
Exactly. And this is where allowing yourself to cross over really comes in handy. Because then coming back, you're not causing any other problems. Oops, got a thread there. I think I'm up to the top of my throat space, but I'm going to get that little section in there. So how's that looking?
I think it looks really great. It's nice and consistent, and you know, I like too that this is a completely random design next to very thoughtful designs. It actually is a great frame for that.
Yep.
I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, and it's not like standing out and saying, hey, look at me. It's the background. It's allowing the piecing, these crazy blocks, to be the focus.
And you're just creating a texture on the fabric, which is perfect.
Yep.
Yep.
So we'll continue and do some more stitching.
Enjoy a little music.
A little blues.
That is the perfect design for this sashing, and it is looking so good.
Thanks. It, again, was the hardest design for me to pick for the entire quilt.
Well, it's the one that really has to pull everything together, and you definitely did that.
Well, thanks.
Well, be sure to stick around and watch to see if your quilt is one of the featured ones here at the end. We always pick our favorite quilts that have been on Instagram using the hashtag Handi Quilter. So if you'd like to have your quilt featured, be sure to tag with hashtag Handi Quilter. In the meantime, have fun quilting.